Is this thing on? It is on. All right, hey, we're over here at River Rock Woodworking with my buddy Dustin.
Hey, what's up, y'all?
And we're gonna make a skateboard. All right, so I bought two skateboards, right? So already glued, already put together, already been through a mold and pre-drilled through Drifter skateboards. This one is a 14.5 wheelbase. And this one is a 14.75 wheelbase. All right, for this project, we're going to use the 14.5-inch mold. We're going to go with the Mark Hines old school GNS. All right, and we put it, we line it up. All right, the GNS is 31 inches long, 10 inches wide. So like there's not gonna be much room here. This might end up a little narrower by the time we're finished with the sanding, just because the mold's not wide enough. This one's no better. But what's gonna give us is a more aggressive nose on the old school GNS and a more aggressive kicktail because this one does dip down before it goes up opposed to the old fashioned natural kick. So we're gonna mount this up, trace it, cut it, and sand it.
Next up, we are going to throw in a zip tie. Through here, out the back, route it back through. All right.
So the reason we can only do one set of holes is the GNS is the old school truck pattern. So we don't have a second reference point through the other deck holes just because it's the old school pattern going on a new school pattern.
All right. So now we don't want to tear up the face of it. So we throw down some cardboard. You also want to make sure that the cardboard is pushed back enough to where you can still draw that line. All right. Now we'll call this the common sense check. After I cut this out, is it going to run off? Is there going to be possibly a bad glue up or whatever? And as of right now, this is starting to look good. So now it's trace time. So what you want to do whenever you're tracing is you want to look down. Try to look straight down, perpendicular to the board, and make like little dots. It's kind of little guide marks. Because if not, your pencil might sit here and wave through. So, bam. And think of this as almost like a rough draft as far as the shape of this, because ultimately your shaping will be done whenever you're sanding. So I'm going to continue to do this all the way around the board. And then kind of double checking yourself, making sure that it is ultimately the shape that you want it, and you don't have a tick mark too far in or too far out of the board. The more tick marks, the more accurate. But if you just do a straight line, if you're looking at the top of this pencil, what you don't want is it accidentally to do this, because you're applying pressure. All right, and then now I'm just connecting the dots. go. All right. And all right, back to the deep part. All right, common sense check. All right. And this way. All right, that's it. Make sure, trace your line. Make sure you in fact have it all, because what you don't want to do is take it out and it be, oh, this is a good one. This is why we do it. Whenever I'm looking down, I was at a different angle and I was not perpendicular to the board. So this is in fact a little concave where this side is not. So that's why I double check, and yeah, it's very minimal, but now's the time to fix it. I think we look good. All right, that's what we got. So now it's time to cut out, and we chose two different methods for cutting out. I would always choose a bandsaw if you have one. The reason why is because the cut is cleaner and it's easier to cut. However, I understand not everybody has a bandsaw, so we also got a jigsaw. We're gonna cut half of this with the bandsaw, the other half with the jigsaw. Now, whenever cutting it out, you wanna stay an 1/8 inch from the outside of your line. If you move into a 1/16 of an inch, that's all right, but what you don't want to do is you don't want to cut on that line. And one thing that I always tell myself whenever cutting is, if you want to be more accurate, go slower. The first thing that I'm going to do is understand that I have a wide blade on here, which means I'm just going to put a couple relief cuts. So where we are right now is we're playing right around a 1/16 of an eighth inch from this line. That's what you want. Don't feel like you need to make that your first cut the final cut. If you saw how I just kind of nicked away at this corner, do it. Just be comfortable and safe whenever you're doing it. All right. So now we got our line. Next up, we got this side cut off with the bandsaw. Next up, we're gonna cut this side with a jigsaw. So whenever choosing the blade for this jigsaw, I wanna show you, you got a blade with 6 teeth per inches and another blade, not exactly sure what it is, but it produces a lot finer cut. There's more teeth. Now, the reason why I'm gonna choose the finer tooth blade is because the blade with fewer teeth runs a higher risk of blowing out these laminated portions. And keep in mind, like whenever you're buying a deck, that's one of the main things that you're purchasing, is you're purchasing the truss, the fact that they glued up each laminated layer in a complete solid manner, rather than all of a sudden you try to cut through it and there wasn't any glue here and it just kind of blows out the side, or it blows out the bottom or on the top. So what I'm gonna do is a finer tooth. Make sure you have your area cleared, because this is so fine. If you make a little turn because you're trying to mess with something over here or whatever, that little nick is gonna be there forever unless you reshape your board. So instead of it being perpendicular, I'm going to try to follow the curve of this board. Again, you're staying about 1/8 inch to 1/16 of an inch, is just kind of a reminder. All right. Whenever I came down, it started binding right here. So blades are just not something I really mess with. So I'm gonna stop, come around, reset, and try to get a better angle. And this is my better angle.
You can really see how much more work it is to use the jigsaw versus the bandsaw, and the blade's getting hotter, looking like these burn marks. So that's interesting.
Yep. So, and then another thing to note is like, you can get a Ryobi bandsaw, because remember, you don't need if you needed to purchase one or the other, you can purchase a Ryobi bandsaw for cheaper than you could one of these. If not, it'll be roughly around the same price, and you'll just get a better cut. All right, I hit that binding point. So now I gotta turn this thing around. All right. Well, I'll let you guys see the cut quality. The fact that, you know, it's real jaggedy. This is very perpendicular at 90 degrees to the face of this board. Compared to this, I just had a lot more control over the shape that I wanted it. However, you're not, this is just like your rough draft as far as your shape. What you want to pay attention to is your sanding. So the fact that this is so jaggedy doesn't mean anything to me, because I know I can still bring it down with that sander rather than taking a chunk out with that jigsaw. So you don't need to get fine cutting with this. All right, next up is sanding. And I'm gonna end up using a spindle sander, but you could absolutely use an orbital sander here. And now we're gonna go through and we're just gonna go and sand and kiss this line that we drew. Now, the angle matters. You want it perpendicular to the side here. So you don't want a sharp angle going straight down at 90 degrees.
Yeah, that'll hit your shins.
Exactly, yeah. All right, so I'm gonna go ahead and get started. What I want to show you guys is there's going to be a lot of high spots. Like high spot here, low spot being to the end of the board, high spot being on the other side of the board. All of that is absolutely fine. You can almost kind of consider it like a rough draft of sanding, because after this, you'll go through with the orbital sander, and that's what's going to take off those high spots. So as you guys see in the video, which is pretty important, I never stop. I never stop the movement. If I have to take another pass, I'll take another pass. And the reason why is because with a spindle sander, if you stop, it just starts making a dish and kind of getting locked into that spot. So I'm positioning it on myself and just kind of swiping. I'm positioning it on myself so I know that the angle is correct. All right. Alright, so I'm pretty happy with that. Now what I'm looking for is to make sure that the angle that it's pushed off to is what I want it to be. I'm looking for that. I'm looking for any pieces like this where the lamination just wasn't enough, so I know that I'm gonna have to take some off here, but I'm gonna have to take the equal amount off the other side, and I'm just making sure that the angle of this is not wavy. So now whenever you're going over this with your orbital sander, same thing. You just want to keep this sander moving. We're taking off the high spots and any kind of like let's just say there's a high spot here and maybe a high spot here. This is just gonna go right over it and it's gonna leave the rough shape of this board, but just kind of fine tune it. Alright, once you think that you're done sanding, feel it. Because your touch is going to catch something that your eye probably won't. Like if there's a little divot or whatever that may be. So what we decided, what we're going to end up doing, we don't want to make this too narrow. So we're going to just add wood glue in here. And what we're going to end up using is Titebond 3. It's an exterior glue, really strong. It has a setup time of about 3 hours and you're able to go back and sand it in 70-degree weather and normal North Carolina humidity. So now just kind of going back, check out your boards, see if you like the curves, see if they make sense to you. Does anything visually look off? So that's what I'm gonna do now. So we checked everything out, but we still have sharp edges. Now, there's 100 ways to skin a cat, so what I wanna do personally is I'm gonna continue using this orbital sander. Just soften up these edges, give it a little chamfer. been using 60 grit sandpaper this whole time, and because I'm not looking for a finished sanding job right now, that's the next step. What I'm looking for is just run your fingers down, make sure that there's no sharp edges. I feel a little sharp edge here. So you could touch it up, and then I feel a sharp edge just right along this side. So I'll make sure to go get that one. If there's something that will destroy the board, it's having a sharp edge. If it gets caught on something and rips that laminated sheet up, then I'm sure you all have dealt with it before. All right, so I made I'm gonna hit this spot, and then I'm gonna be hand sanding the rest with, you can go with 120, and then I will probably stop at 120. I'll skip to 180, and I'll be good to go. All right, I like it.
That's really interesting. So just you saw us trace the board, but just due to the concave of the board, you can see that it's a good 1.5 inches longer on the nose. All right, so like we've never done this before. He's never done it. I didn't really do much, but like hold the camera. This is the first go, and I think it's awesome. He did a great job. And now he's going to show me how to patch the wood. It would be unfair to Drifter to say that their mold wasn't tight. I picked a 10-inch board on a 10-inch mold. I didn't give any wiggle room at all for cutting off that side, just by the shape of the deck I picked. But he's going to show us how to touch it up.
All right, so how we're going to fix this is I'm going to apply tape to both sides. And then I use this glue. Just kind of fill that in. Use a pencil or a stick.
Boom.
Just like that, let it dry. All right, so this is the first time that I've ever done this. I've never worked with just such a shaped platform before. So I guess one of my biggest takeaways that I personally learned that I'm gonna continue with my projects that I end up doing is we aligned the board to the truck mounts. And I think what I would end up doing is I would work from the center out, because what ended up happening behind scenes was we kind of started chasing some curves here and there where the actual board was that we traced was a little bit off itself. So what I would take away is I would draw those lines and then measure before I start cutting. You know, I guess that's kind of standard knowledge. It looks good until you end up cutting it. But I'm really happy with what we ended up with. So what's your guys' takeaways? I'd love to hear them. Go ahead and post them on the channel. And got a question for you guys. This will end up being mine. I want to know what should I make out of it? What shape?
All right, back at the house. Sanded down where the glue was and about to clear coat it.
Yeah. Please tell me that I can't, that I won't, that I fail, that I'll never make it out, yeah. Please tell me all the bad, never good, fill my head full of every single doubt, yeah. Please say any negative thoughts, I pop off when I hear people say I cannot. I get off to the thought of proving everyone wrong, I won't stop to the top, so you better back off and get lost. I'ma stay loud, stay proud, never running out, never heading south. I'll be spreading out, call it word of mouth, can't put me down, I'll be getting loud. You can have it douse, not what I'm about, have your cloud, it be raining out, I keep making sound, go another round, I'm legend bound, can't stop me now. You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me that I can and I'll show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. 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 Cause I just wanna hear it out your mouth, yeah. Give me fuel, it's a tool that I use to go ahead and run my mouth, yeah. I take shots, I take loss, I make shots, I miss lots. I tell you get big box, you get yachts, you swing lots and pop off a big shot. I ain't done chasing, got big dreams, bigger things, impatient. Who's at the top think they need replacement? Who's at the top think I'm gonna erase them? Face it, I don't give up quick, I don't give up, I won't give up this. Cause I know that I want it, know that I'm on it, I'll make it, I promise. You don't wanna fuck with me, a slow burn like a disease. Just tell me what I can and show you things that you couldn't believe. Just tell me that I can. 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 Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 Hustle hard, hustle every single day. I'll be making moves till I'm buried in my grave. To the system, I don't wanna be a slave. I've been doing shit my way, or the highway. And in the driveway is a nice range, cause I grind through the climb, I invite pain. You'll never hear me, bitch, nah, I don't complain. Just gotta flip the switch and you can go and obtain anything you want, anything you need. Your mind's got the key ingredient, it's belief. They'll deceive with the negativity, but I just slide right by that energy. Even when you feel low, you can still go. Even when you feel slow, you can still go. Even when there's no hope, you can still go. I never answer to no, man, I still go. Go, 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 go. You got a mind, but even that could change. You could flip the gray matter like some batter in your brain. That's why I say, fake it till you make it A. And if you play that game, then you just might make a change. Rearrange all the bad to okay. Take the worst thoughts saying, turn them to a game. Take the best thoughts saying, put them on display. On repeat in your brain till you're feeling no more pain. Never slow yourself down.
All right, that's it. Made a board, like literally. We made a board and then we skated the board. Held up pretty well. And we got our tricks. Obviously not the best board for getting tricks. It's a little heavy, it's a little big. But hey, it's a skateboard. And it was just a piece of wood not too long ago. So I'm stoked on it. Man, great experience. Great experience. Go make a skateboard. Go do something rad. All right, I'm out.